significance of the milestone we're crossing today here in Port Louis, Maldives, for signing the very first, as you said, Honorable Minister, the very first reimbursable technical assistance that IFAD is negotiating with one of its member countries. Assisting governments to invest in agricultural and rural development through RTAs, reimbursable technical assistance, is innovative because we don't normally used to do it. It's been done. It's not the first time that somebody's trying it, but it's quite an innovative business model for IFAD to strategically reorient and reinforce our partnership with emerging middle-income countries such as Mauritius in combating rural poverty. There are many, in fact, strangely, the biggest amount of poor people actually are found in middle-income countries. If you take China, India, they have the pockets of poverty are much bigger than the total amount of numbers of poverty elsewhere. And we are confident that this first IFAD brokered RTA with the Republic of Mauritius will take our already very strong and long-lasting partnership between IFAD and the government and the peoples of Mauritius. I keep confusing because I used to be in charge of Maldives for 9 years, IFAD country program in Maldives. We'll take our very strong and long-lasting partnership, which dated back to 1981, since our first operation started here in the Mauritius, to another level and lay a solid foundation for a totally new business model for IFAD. And I was telling Honorable Minister that we already are starting to get requests from various governments for applying this model, from Pakistan, from China, from the Asian Development Bank, from the Kuwaiti Development Fund, to see how IFAD can support the agricultural sectors through the RTA, especially in middle-income countries, but also sometimes in relatively less endowed countries. I would also like to express our appreciation really for the teams of experts from Mauritius and from our own colleagues in the IFAD who worked so hard to make today possible for us. Yeah. We really have to thank them for their efforts, from the government, from the people, from the ministry, and from IFAD as well. Honorable Minister, ladies and gentlemen, before this new type of operation partnership emerged between Mauritius and IFAD, we did, as you said, we did used to have lending, the classical lending type of operations. A total assistance of IFAD of just about over $23 million was invested in Mauritius for 3 projects, including the last one that you mentioned, which closed in 2013. And those 3 operations reached and benefited a total of over 20,330 households in Mauritius. In Mauritius rural areas, I have to add as well, because IFAD, as you may know, unlike a lot of the other international finance institutions, we work uniquely, exclusively in the rural sectors. We don't have operations in the cities. The main aim of the present RTA agreement that we are going to sign is to support the government, as you probably much more eloquently mentioned, operationalize its 2013 SEED Act by setting up regulatory frameworks for its implementation and subsequently developing a national seed policy and strategy to meet the country's seed requirements for competing really well nationally, but also regionally. We hope we can be able to strengthen the government's capacity and the people's capacity to achieve that objective. As a net importer of staple food commodities like rice, wheat, and pulses, Mauritius' vulnerabilities were dangerously exposed in 2008, as you may recall, by the global soaring food price crisis, which hit a lot of countries. At that time, actually, it so happened that I was in charge of the Philippines, and Philippines was in the eye of that storm. And we had to develop a new project for Philippines in the space of six months. I was asked by my president to respond to the Secretary General of the United Nations call that we should help countries who were facing this food crisis. And you may recall maybe the governments of Philippines and some other governments were under threat of actually collapsing because of the strikes and complaints about. And a lot of the countries like Vietnam, India, closed their borders. They stopped exporting because they were worried about their own nationals who were facing this food crisis. So Mauritius was exposed at that point to these food crises. And in addition, Mauritius' challenges are further compounded by its exposure to the negative effects of climate change. We just talked about it a little bit, the floods, the drought sometimes, probably not drought here, but you do have these possible floods. Also the problem is islands are always very difficult. As I said, I used to be in charge of Maldives, and the transaction costs in working in very small islands far away is very high, which makes it very complicated to help. So it is in this dire context that the government, your government, took this commitment to secure a reliable food supply for its population by providing affordable, safe, and nutritious food. So that never again Mauritians will be exposed to this kind of risks of malnutrition, of hunger. IFAD, frankly, I can tell you that we are really honored to have been requested by the Mauritian government to assist in achieving this noble ambition of your government, which is perfectly aligned with our mandate. IFAD's mandate is exactly that, what you've asked us to do. We are also proud to be able to continue through this operation, because otherwise we may have had to stop operations in the Maldives, Mauritius, in making, successfully implementing far-reaching economic reforms that fuel remarkable increases in incomes and decline in poverty, especially in the areas which catapulted the Mauritius government and people to upper middle income status. So we would really be very glad to continue to support you in that ambition and that achievement which you already have made. We stand ready as a partner of choice in promoting global best practices for smallholder agriculture, to use the approximately, as you mentioned, 1.2 million US dollars that your government is going to make available to IFAD to mobilize required international expertise and also our own expertise in the house of IFAD to do all the things you mentioned. Develop appropriate quality control regulations and systems for the importation and local production of high-quality seeds, build local capacity for the implementation of those regulations and policies, conduct the review that you mentioned of the seed sector, which will hopefully lead to the design of an appropriate national seed sector development policy and strategy, and help to build the capacity of your ministry, but also others here in Mauritius to be able to achieve the goals that you've set for yourself. Honorable Minister, ladies and gentlemen, within the framework of the present RTM, IFAD will act as a broker because Our role will be to mobilize our resources, but also to actually put the government in contact with others who can support it much better. We pride ourselves of having a global network of agriculturalists and agricultural development experts who can be able to help us to bring the support that the government and people of Mauritius require. I am very pleased to note that the Ministry of Agro-Industry and Food Security has already set up a team, the National Technical Team of seed experts and program management specialists, to implement the proposed RTA. This development augurs very well for the successful implementation and timely implementation of this RTA. I will take this opportunity to also reassure you and everybody, government of the Maldives, that, of Mauritius, that IFAD stands ready to work very closely with your team to deliver this particular project that we have packaged together. Honorable Minister, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I am confident that the present RTA will set the scene for more similar technical assistance agreements between IFAD and Mauritius in the agricultural sector, such as the proposed agribusiness support program that the government is developing. IFAD stands ready to explore the possibility of a second reimbursable technical assistance scheme in support of that program too, should the government consider it appropriate. May I take this opportunity also to express IFAD's appreciation, Honorable Minister, for the active role that Mauritius played in replenishing IFAD's resources during previous replenishment cycles. As you may know, IFAD replenishes its resources every 3 years. And now we have, since IFAD started, we are now in IFAD 10, the 10th replenishment cycle. Previously, Mauritius has contributed generously to those replenishments. The present one, which just started now, 2016 to 2018, we are expecting that Mauritius will continue to also support that particular program. You haven't done it yet, but we hope that you will do that as well, in the continuation of the good demonstration of your commitment to combat rural poverty globally, not just in Mauritius, but globally. As you may know, IFAD operations now stand at over $15 billion. If you talk about, we're now in 90 countries throughout. We have about 176 member countries, but about 100 of them borrow from IFAD resources. And the executive committee of IFAD decided that 50% of our resources must come to Africa. And every year we commit about $1.1 billion of investments throughout the world, Asia, Latin America, Africa. But of this $1.1 billion the decision is that 50%, at least 50%, must come to Africa. But Africa, including North Africa as well, Egypt, Algeria, not just Sub-Saharan Africa. So with this, I would like to thank you, Honorable Minister, and also wish the team who is going to implement this new project all the success, because we need the success to make sure that we could multiply this much more. Thank you very much for your attention.